Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The guillotine blade didn't whistle as it fell in my dream. It sang a melody of relief, a final crescendo to a life composed of cruelty, arrogance, and wasted potential. I woke up screaming, clutching my throat, my silk sheets drenched in a cold sweat that smelled of terror and impending doom. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird, the phantom sensation of severed nerves ghosting across my skin. It wasn't just a nightmare. It was a memory of a future that hadn't happened yet, a premonition downloaded into my consciousness the moment the fever broke. I wasn't just Lord Valerius Thorn, the Grand Duke of the Obsidian Vale and the Empire's most feared cryomancer. I was the antagonist. I was the villain in a trashy, melodramatic web novel I had read in a past life, destined to die at the hands of the very man I had spent a decade tormenting, Crown Prince Kalen Aurelius. The realization settled over me like the heavy velvet drapes blocking out the moonlight. I sat up, my long silver hair sticking to my neck, and stared into the ornate mirror across the room. The face staring back was undeniably beautiful in a sharp, predatory way. Pale skin, eyes the color of fractured amethysts, and lips that naturally curled into a sneer. This was the face that would sneer at the saintess, poison the royal tea, and eventually be separated from its body in chapter 150. I checked the calendar on the bedside table. It was the year of the Red Comet, 3 months before this celestial banquet. In the novel, the banquet was the turning point where I would publicly humiliate the saintess, Elena, and Kalen would finally snap, declaring me an enemy of the state. 3 months, I whispered, my voice raspy. I have 3 months to rewrite a decade of villainy. In the novel, Valerius Thorn was a one-dimensional hater. He hated the poor, hated the weak, and most of all, hated Kalen Aurelius for being the son of the Empire, while Valerius was cast as the shadow. But as I sat there, the memories of the current Valerius merged with my awakened consciousness. I felt the bitterness, yes, but beneath it lay a cavern of loneliness so deep it echoed. Valerius didn't hate Kalen. He envied him. He admired him. And in the twisted logic of a broken child raised by an abusive ducal family, he sought Kalen's attention the only way he knew how, through conflict. But I wasn't that broken child anymore. I was a man who knew the ending of the story, and I had no intention of dying for a plot device. The plan was simple: abdication. I would liquidate my assets, transfer the title of Duke to my incompetent but harmless cousin, and flee to the Southern Isles where the plot couldn't find me. To do that, I needed to alienate Kalen not with cruelty, but with indifference. I needed to become boring. The next morning, I began my retreat. I canceled my attendance at the royal hunt. I refused audiences with the chaotic nobles who usually flocked to me for schemes. I stayed in my library, drafting transfer deeds. But the narrative, I learned, is a beast that fights back when you try to cage it. 3 days into my isolation, the doors to my study were blown open. Not opened, blown open. The heavy oak splintered, shards of wood skittering across the marble floor. Standing in the wreckage, bathed in the golden afternoon light that seemed to cling to him like a second skin, was Prince Kalen. He was every bit the manhwa protagonist. Broad shoulders encased in white and gold military regalia, messy blonde hair that looked like spun gold, and eyes of piercing sapphire blue. In the novel, those eyes were usually filled with righteous justice. Right now, they were filled with a chaotic, swirling storm of rage. "Valerius," he growled, stepping over the debris. The air in the room grew hot, the ambient temperature rising with his fire magic. I didn't rise from my desk. I kept my face impassive, masking the terror seizing my insides. "Your Highness, to what do I owe the pleasure of you destroying my property? I assume the repair bill can be sent to the palace?" Kalen stalked forward, slamming his gloved hands onto my desk. The wood groaned under the pressure. "You withdrew from the hunt." "I did," I said, dipping a quill into ink, forcing my hand not to tremble. "I find the slaughter of innocent beasts tedious these days. I prefer reading." "You prefer reading?" Kalen repeated, his voice dropping an octave. "You, who spent the last 5 years trying to out-hunt me. You, who threatened to freeze the entire forest if I bagged a larger stag." "People change, Kalen. I said softly, using his name without the honorific, a slip of the tongue I instantly regretted. I am tired. I simply wish to be left alone. I expected him to be relieved. The villain was stepping aside. The hero should be happy. Instead, Kalen's expression darkened. He leaned in, his face inches from mine. I could smell him, burning wood, ozone, and a hint of expensive sandalwood soap. It was intoxicating. You are planning something, he accused, his eyes searching mine. You are never quiet unless you are plotting a catastrophe. What is it? Are you targeting Elena? The northern borders? I am targeting retirement, I sighed, leaning back and meeting his gaze. I am bored of you, Kalen. I am bored of this rivalry. I am bored of the court. You win. Take the glory, take the crown, take the girl. I just want out. Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Kalen looked at me as if I were a puzzle he couldn't solve, or a creature he had never seen before. The rage in his eyes shifted into something else, suspicion, confusion, and something darker I couldn't place. You're lying, he whispered. I am not. He grabbed my chin, his fingers hot against my cool skin. The contact sent a jolt of electricity down my spine, a reaction Valerius's body had conditioned over years of repressed longing. You don't get to leave, Kalen hissed. You don't get to start a war and then walk off the battlefield just because you're bored. You are mine to defeat, Valerius. You belong to the narrative of my life. I pulled away, my heart aching. Then write me out of it. He stormed out as quickly as he arrived, leaving the room vibrating with residual heat. I touched my chin where his fingers had burned me. This was going to be harder than I thought. Weeks passed. My plan to flee accelerated. I had secured a ship. I had the papers ready. The final hurdle was the celestial banquet. As a Grand Duke, my absence would be considered treason unless I publicly announced my retirement there. It was risky, walking into the lion's den, but it was the only way to ensure my cousin's succession was recognized before I vanished. The night of the banquet, the imperial palace was a kaleidoscope of silk, jewels, and superficial laughter. I wore black, a stark contrast to the pastels of the court, a high-collared velvet suit embroidered with silver thread that looked like frost. I moved through the crowd like a wraith, ignoring the whispers. Look at Lord Thorne. He looks paler than usual. I heard he's going mad. He hasn't insulted anyone in weeks. I found my spot near the balcony doors, clutching a glass of champagne I didn't intend to drink. Across the room, Kalen was holding court. He looked magnificent in his ceremonial armor, the Saintess Elena hanging on his arm. She was petite, doe-eyed, everything a heroine should be. Seeing them together should have made me feel safe. The plot was correcting itself. But when Kalen's eyes met mine across the crowded ballroom, he didn't look like a man in love with the woman on his arm. He looked like a starving wolf spotting a wounded deer. He disentangled himself from Elena with abrupt rudeness and began cutting a path toward me. Panic flared. I turned to the balcony doors, stepping out into the cool night air. I needed to leave. I would make the announcement later. I needed to run now. I made it to the stone railing, ready to vault over and use a levitation spell to escape, when the air behind me shimmered with heat. Running away, Valerius? I froze. I turned slowly. Kalen stood in the doorway, the light from the ballroom framing him in a halo. But his face was in shadow. I told you, I said, my voice steady. I am retiring. Retiring to the Southern Isles? Under the alias Varric? Kalen took a step forward. He held up a piece of paper, my forged travel documents. Did you think you could hide this from me? I have spies in your household, Valerius. I have watched your every move since we were children. Why do you care? I snapped, the facade cracking. I am removing the thorn from your side. You should be celebrating. Go back to your Saintess. Go back to your destiny. Destiny. Kalen laughed, a harsh, jagged sound. He closed the distance between us in a blink, slamming me back against the stone railing. The drop was 100 feet down, but I was more afraid of the man in front of me. You think my destiny is with her? It's written, I shouted, the stress of the secret finally boiling over. It is the way of the world. You are the hero, she is the light, and I am the villain destined to die on your blade. I am trying to save you the trouble of killing me. Kalen froze. The anger drained from his face, replaced by a terrifying intensity. Is that what you think? That I want to kill you? You hate me, I whispered. You've always hated me. Kalen's hand moved to my waist, pulling me flush against him. The heat of his body soaked into my freezing attire. I have never hated you, Valerius. I have been obsessed with you since the moment you first sneered at me in the academy. Every duel, every argument, every public spat. It was the only way you would look at me. My breath hitched. This wasn't in the book. This wasn't in the script. But, Elena, is a cover, Kalen dismissed. The emperor demands an heir. The church demands a saintess. I played along to keep them off my back, and to keep you safe from their scrutiny. If they knew that the crown prince burned only for the wicked Duke of the North, they would have had you executed for corruption years ago. My mind reeled. The plot hole. The inconsistencies. Why the villain always survived his schemes until the very end. Kalen had been protecting me from his own allies. But the prophecy, I stammered. The hero kills the villain. Then I am no hero, Kalen growled, his face dipping toward mine. And you are no villain. We are just two men drowning in a play written by fools. He kissed me. It wasn't soft. It was a collision of fire and ice, a desperate, starving claim. He kissed me like he was trying to breathe life into a corpse, or perhaps steal the breath from one. His tongue invaded my mouth, tasting of wine and desperation. I tried to push him away, the narrative, the danger, the sheer impossibility of it, but my hands betrayed me, clutching his lapels, pulling him closer. For a moment, the world dissolved. There was no plot, no readers, no looming guillotine. Just the heat of his mouth and the cold night air. Then agony. A searing pain erupted in my chest, radiating outward like a spiderweb of fire. I gasped, breaking the kiss, doubling over. Valerius. Kalen's voice was frantic. He caught me as I fell. The script, I wheezed. Blood coughed from my lips, staining his white uniform crimson. The world flickered. I saw text floating in the air, glowing red. Asterisk, error. Plot deviation detected. Correction initiated. Target, Valerius Thorn. Status, termination. Asterisk. The universe was trying to kill me for breaking character. The heart attack wasn't biological, it was narrative execution. No, Kalen roared. He placed his hand over my heart. No, he didn't use healing magic. He used his raw aura, his hero's will. In the novel, this power was used to break curses. Now he was pouring it into me, fighting the invisible hand of the author. You cannot take him. Kalen screamed at the sky, his eyes glowing with blinding white light. If he is the villain, then let me be the monster who loves him. I reject this story. I reject this ending. The pain was blinding. I felt my soul tearing, the villain archetype being ripped away from my true self. It felt like being flayed alive. Kalen, I gasped, my vision tunneling. Let me go? It will kill you too. Good. He snarled, tears streaming down his face, mixing with the blood on his chin. Then we die together. But I will not live in a world where I am the hero of a story without you. He leaned down, pressing his forehead against mine. Listen to me, Valerius. I bind my soul to yours. Ancient right of the Solara bloodline. If I live, you live. If you die, I burn the world to ash. A golden chain materialized around us, visible only to those with second sight. It wrapped around my heart, shattering the red text of the system. The pain vanished, replaced by a surge of warmth so intense it made me gasp. The system shattered like glass. The narrative pressure lifted. I slumped against him, breathing heavily. The silence on the balcony was absolute. Kalen held me, rocking me slightly. I've got you. I've got you. I looked up at him, seeing the man beneath the archetype. He looked exhausted, terrifying, and beautiful. You foolish, reckless idiot. I whispered, wiping the blood from his lip with my thumb. You destroyed the plot. I wrote a new one, he rasped, catching my hand and kissing the palm. One where the villain tames the hero, and they rule the empire together. Do you like it? I looked at the palace behind us, the music still playing, the people oblivious to the metaphysical war that had just been fought. I looked at the man who had defied fate itself to keep me. It needs work. I smiled weakly, my eyes fluttering shut as exhaustion took me. But the opening act wasn't bad. We didn't return to the party. Kalen carried me out of the palace, past the shocked guards, and into his private carriage. We went to my estate, not to pack, but to stay. The next morning, the rumors were wild. The crown prince had been bewitched. The duke had cast a spell. Let them talk. I sat in my garden, tea steaming in front of me. Kalen sat across from me, reviewing the documents I had prepared for my abdication. He set them on fire with a flick of his finger. You won't be needing those, he said calmly, watching the paper turn to ash. People will riot, I pointed out. The hero and the villain? Let them, Kalen smiled. And for the first time, it wasn't the practiced smile of a prince, nor the snarl of a rival. It was the smile of a man who had won the only prize that mattered. I'd like to see them try to stop us. I took a sip of my tea. The bitter taste was gone, replaced by something sweet. I had awakened as the villain, expecting death. Instead, I found myself in the arms of the beast I was meant to slay. Fate is a funny thing. Sometimes, you have to play the villain to realize you were the hero's reward all along. And that is how the viper tamed the wolf. If you enjoyed seeing Kalen burn the script to save Valerius, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you forgive a destiny that tried to kill you for love? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then, prompt image. Prompt, masterpiece, best quality, high-res, 1.2. Korean manhwa style, semi-realistic, digital art, 2 men, BL, Yaoi, man 1. Valerius, silver long hair, pale skin, sharp aristocrat features, wearing black velvet suit with silver embroidery, bloody lip, expression of shock and longing, leaning back against stone balcony railing. Man 2. Kalen, messy blonde hair, piercing blue eyes, wearing white and gold royal military uniform with blood stains, aggressive yet protective pose, hand. Gripping man 1's chin, intense Yandere expression. Background is night sky with full moon, stone balcony of a Baroque palace. Magical golden chains glowing faintly around them. Floating red glitch text shattering in air. Dramatic lighting, cinematic composition, emotional atmosphere.